My name's Harold Pierce, 73, retired carpenter. I've driven every nail in this place, from the porch rails to the roof beams. For 40 years, this patch of land has been my pride, the only thing still standing after my wife passed and the factory shut down. Saturday morning, I was sanding a chair leg in the shed when my son-in-law Todd showed up. He had that salesman grin, tight, polite, dangerous. "Harold, got a second?" "Make it quick," I said, wiping the dust off my hands. He leaned on the doorframe like he already owned it. "It's about the house. With the kids growing and Emily working from home, it's starting to feel cramped. Maybe it's time you look for something smaller. A condo, maybe. Closer to people your age." I looked at him the way you look at a nail that's bent before you even swing the hammer. "You're asking me to move out of my own house." He raised both palms. "No one's asking you to move out. Just forward. You'd have your own place, less stress. We'd handle things here." "Handle things," I repeated. "You mean take over?" He smiled again, a little tighter. "Emily agrees. It's the practical choice." That word, practical, always hides a knife. I set the chair leg down. "Todd, this roof didn't fall from the sky. I carried every beam up that ladder myself. You think I'm giving it up because you ran out of closet space?" He looked around the yard, buying time. "It's not about space. It's about what's best for everyone. For everyone but me." He sighed. "You can't live here forever, Harold. Watch me." We stared each other down until he blinked first. "Fine," he said, "but this conversation isn't finished." "Yes, it is," I told him. "You just don't know it yet." When his truck rattled off the gravel, I went straight to the attic. Beneath a box of my wife's cookbooks sat a metal file case. Deed, tax receipts, notarized copies of ownership, every line signed by my hand. I'd spent a lifetime watching men try to cheat one another. I wasn't about to be their next lesson. That evening, Emily came home quiet. She stirred the stew without meeting my eyes. "He talked to you," I said. She didn't answer. "Tell your husband," I went on, "that if he brings up downsizing again, he'll be the one packing." Her jaw tightened. "Dad, we're just thinking ahead. I already did the thinking 40 years ago when I bought this land." She left the kitchen without another word. The only sound left was the ticking of the old clock on the wall, a clock I'd fixed 100 times and still trusted more than either of them. That night, I sat on the porch swing, the wood creaking under me, and watched the moon hang over the fields. I'd built this place for my family, not for vultures pretending to be kin. If they wanted to play games with my roof over their heads, I'd teach them what happens when you try to outbuild the man who laid the foundation. Tomorrow, I decided I'd pay a visit to Samuel Reed, my old lawyer friend. If Todd thought age made me soft, he was about to learn the grain of oak doesn't bend. It breaks what tries to twist it. The next morning, I was at Samuel Reed's law office before the receptionist had even finished her coffee. Sam used to be sharp as a tack in his day. Judging by the look he gave me when I walked in, not much had dulled. "Harold," he said, standing up with a grin. "Haven't seen you since the courthouse roof leaked." "I've got a situation," I said, handing him the folder I pulled from my attic. He sat, opened it, flipped through the deed, the tax records, the notarized will. Then he raised an eyebrow. "Someone's trying to mess with your house. My son-in-law thinks I should downsize." Same's smile vanished. "He said that to your face?" "On my porch, in my yard, while drinking coffee I brewed." He tapped the folder. "You're still sole owner. We'll leave it to Emily, sure, but only after your death. That gives you full authority. He doesn't have a leg to stand on." I nodded. "I want it tighter. Bulletproof. Ironclad." "You thinking trust? Living will? Life estate?" "I'm thinking I want every inch of this house locked behind glass until I'm 6 feet under." He leaned back, whistled. "All right, here's what we do. You assign yourself a life estate. Legal right to remain in the property until death. Then amend the will. Add a clause. Any attempt to remove you, pressure you, manipulate you, automatically voids inheritance." "Good. Add another. If I die under suspicious circumstances, I want the house going to a veterans charity instead." He laughed. "Planning for murder, are we? I've seen Todd make a sandwich. If he handles poison the same way, I'll smell it before I eat it." We spent the next 3 hours drafting the documents. Sam made sure every word had legal bite, the kind that doesn't just bark in court, but tears flesh. By noon, everything was signed and sealed. Copies notarized. Originals in my fireproof box. You want me to deliver a copy to your daughter? Sam asked. Not yet. Let them feel safe. Let Todd think he's clever. That weekend, I played nice. Ate dinner at the same table with the people planning to shove me into a retirement unit like a piece of old furniture. Emily made pot roast. Todd poured wine. They talked about a friend's cabin, real estate markets, Emily's new remote job. I just listened, smiling, waiting. Then Todd said too casually, Dad, I talked to a guy from First Oak Realty. He said, now's the time to sell. Prices are up. You can make a killing on this place. I didn't blink. And where would I live, Todd? There's a senior community 2 towns over. Brand new. Pool, garden plots, medical staff. You'd have peace and quiet. You mean I'd be out of your way? He lifted his wine glass. I mean, you deserve better. I smiled. Well, I do deserve better. And I've arranged exactly that. He froze for a moment. What do you mean? I wiped my mouth. Just making sure things are in order. Paperwork, legacy, protections. The stuff you don't understand until it bites you. He didn't say anything after that. Neither did Emily. The next day, I saw him snooping in my study while he thought I was outside. Looking through folders. Looking for anything. He didn't find it. The real paperwork was in the fireproof box, locked in the floor under the tool bench. He'd have better luck stealing the sun. But what really told me he was worried was what happened Monday morning. I caught him talking to a lawyer on the back patio. His voice was low, but I heard enough. If he's declared mentally unfit, can we take over the estate? That was all I needed. That night, I called Sam. Let's deliver the envelope. Tuesday evening. I was in the living room when the doorbell rang. Emily opened it. There stood Sam in his dark gray suit, briefcase in one hand, legal envelope in the other. Good evening, he said. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Harold Pierce. Emily glanced at me. Dad, what is this? Sam held out the envelope. A formal notice. Updated legal status of the property and revised inheritance terms. Todd entered from the hallway, caught sight of Sam, and went pale. What is this? He snapped. Sam didn't flinch. A reminder of who owns this house. And what happens if that ownership is threatened. Todd ripped open the envelope, skimmed the top page. His lips moved as he read, and I watched the panic spread through him like spilled ink. It says any attempt to remove Harold from his home, Sam interrupted, results in immediate loss of all inheritance rights. And if his death is ever found to be unnatural, the estate goes to a military charity in his name. You can't be serious, Todd said. I'm a lawyer, Mr. Davenport, Sam replied. I'm never casual about these things. Emily looked between us all, speechless. Todd finally threw the papers onto the table. So you're blackmailing us? No, I said calmly. I'm protecting myself, from my own family, if necessary. He stormed out of the room. Emily followed. I sat back in my chair, poured myself a cup of tea, and turned to Sam. Well, I said. He smiled. I think they got the message. 3 days. That's how long the silence lasted after Samuel delivered the papers. Todd barely looked me in the eye. Emily kept to herself, avoiding any conversation that wasn't about groceries or the weather. I didn't mind. Silence is easier to sweep than lies. But I knew it wasn't over. Men like Todd don't walk away from power. They regroup, recalculate. And I was right. It started with small things. He began recording our conversations on his phone, holding it casually like he was checking emails, but I knew better. He'd ask questions twice, hoping for different answers. He even left post-it notes on the fridge reminding me to take my pills. I don't take pills. Never have. Then came a notebook. I found it by accident one morning when I was cleaning up the kitchen after breakfast. Hidden behind the toaster, spiral-bound, Todd's handwriting all over it. March 17th. Harold forgot his keys. False? I left them in the shed. 3:19. Harold repeated a story twice, same one he always tells, about the Army Jeep. March 21st. Harold asked what day it was. I asked because Todd was supposed to mow the lawn and hadn't. He was building a case, trying to make me look senile. I smiled. A cruel, quiet smile. I'd seen this tactic before, in wills, in estates, in families falling apart. But I had something Todd didn't: experience. That afternoon, I called Sam. He's trying to set me up as mentally unfit. Sam didn't even sound surprised. Do you want a countermeasure? I want a psychological evaluation. Independent. Scheduled by us. I want it documented and signed before he has a chance to pull anything. On it, he said. 2 days later, I walked into a clinic across town and sat down with Dr. Laura Kim, a psychologist Sam had worked with before. She was sharp, asked clear questions, had no time for nonsense. Do you know why you're here, Mr. Pierce? Yes, I said. Because my daughter married a man who thinks manipulation is a strategy. She smiled and nodded. We'll do a full cognitive assessment. Memory, logic, emotional regulation. Just talk to me. I talked. She asked me dates, events, patterns, puzzles. I answered every one. I even challenged her on a few. After 2 hours, she smiled again, this time wider. Mr. Pierce, your mind is sharp as a nail. And just as dangerous. Good, I said. Put it in writing. 3 signed documents and 1 notarized cognitive evaluation later, I was back home sipping coffee when Todd came back from the store. I greeted him on the porch. How's your notebook coming? He froze. What? You know, the one behind the toaster. You might want to be more subtle next time. Or just stop being a snake. His jaw tensed. You're paranoid. No, I said calmly. You are. And just so, you know, any claim about my mental health is already disarmed. Got the paperwork to prove it. Independent evaluator. Licensed. Not related to me. Want a copy? He didn't answer. Just turned and walked inside. That night, Emily knocked on my door. Dad, can we talk? I let her in. She sat on the edge of the armchair, like she didn't belong there. Todd told me you got tested. Yep. You think we're trying to get you declared incompetent? I don't think it, Emily. I saw the notes. I know the games. She sighed. He's just trying to plan for the future. By faking signs of dementia. He thought maybe you needed help. I stared at her for a long second. No, Emily. He thought maybe if he could make me look crazy, he could take what's mine. Her face turned red. That's not true. Then why are you still defending him? She stood up. Because he's my husband, and I'm your father. She hesitated, then said the one thing she shouldn't have. You're 73, Dad. You can't live here forever. I stood, slow, deliberate, looked her dead in the eye. This house will bury me before it lets me go. And the two of you, if you keep pushing, you'll be gone long before that. She opened her mouth but said nothing. Walked out of the room, and I went to bed, the legal documents filed and safe, the evaluation locked in the drawer beside my bed, and a new plan forming in my head. If they want to play games, I'd show them who built the damn board. The next move came faster than I expected. I was in the garage, changing the oil on the old Buick when a white envelope arrived from the county assessor's office. Thick paper, windowed front, official seal. I opened it, read 2 lines, and smirked. Notice of review, residency and property tax evaluation. That's Snake. He couldn't prove I was mentally unfit, so now he was trying to prove I wasn't the primary resident. Todd had filed an anonymous complaint, claiming I wasn't living in the home full-time, that I was dependent on my daughter and her husband, and therefore shouldn't be eligible for senior homeowner tax benefits. What he didn't know was that I'd seen this trick before, back in '98 when some cousin tried to pull it on a World War II vet. I helped stop it then. Now I'd stop it for myself. I drove straight to the assessor's office, walked in with a folder thick enough to stop a bullet. Name? The woman asked. Harold Pierce. Purpose of visit? Defense. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in front of an official with slicked back hair and a pinstripe tie. He started speaking like he was rehearsing for court. Mr. Pierce, we've received a report suggesting you may no longer meet the criteria for homeowner exemptions due to changes in your living arrangement. I dropped the folder on the table. Here's 40 years of tax returns, monthly utility bills with my name on every one, bank statements, voter registration, and a notarized affidavit from 2 neighbors confirming I live here year-round. Wanting to keep going, he blinked. I added, oh, and a copy of a police report I filed last year when someone tried to break into my shed. That report lists this address as my primary residence. Signed by an officer who's been on the force since your mother was in high school. Silence. Then he cleared his throat. That should suffice. We'll dismiss the review. Good, I said, standing up. And tell your system, next time someone files a false report, they better be ready to sign their name. That evening, I waited in the kitchen when Todd came back from a run, sweat on his forehead, headphones still in. I didn't say a word, just slid the tax notice across the counter. He glanced down and paled. "You went down there?" "Sure did. And guess what, Todd? I've paid more taxes in my life than you've paid rent." "Nice try, though." "Really? Filing anonymously. That was bold." He opened his mouth. I raised a finger. "Save it. You've now tried to remove me 3 different ways: psychological pressure, manipulation through Emily, and now tax fraud. That's 3 strikes, son." He scoffed. "You can't prove I filed that." I smiled. "I don't need to. But if another anonymous complaint shows up from this address, I'll press harassment charges so fast your Peloton will still be spinning when the sheriff knocks." He stormed out, slamming the door. Later that night, Emily tried again. "Dad, this is getting out of hand. Can't we all just sit down and talk like adults?" "I've been talking like an adult since before you were born. Your husband's the one acting like a child with a grudge. He's just stressed." "No, Emily. He's greedy. And you're letting him turn my home into a battlefield." She crossed her arms. "Maybe we should have had a clearer plan." I looked her straight in the eyes. The plan was simple. You live here as my guests. That's it. No schemes. No paperwork tricks. No forced transitions. You don't trust us? I stood up. I don't trust a man who files anonymous tax complaints on a Monday and smiles at me over breakfast on Tuesday. Emily looked down. For a moment, I thought she might say she was sorry. But instead, she just walked out, which told me exactly where her loyalty still was. That weekend, I had a contractor friend of mine come over. We walked the property line together, tape in hand, clipboard under his arm. "What's the job?" he asked. "I want to install a gate." "What kind of gate?" "One that opens with my permission and stays shut the rest of the time." He smiled. "Got it." Todd might have been playing games inside the house. But outside, the land still answered to me. And I wasn't done till I woke up early that Sunday before sunrise. The house was still, quiet, the way it used to be before Emily married him. The floorboards creaked under my feet like they remembered when I walked them alone. The gate crew had finished the day before, iron, motorized, with a keypad only I knew the code for. I stood by the window watching Todd's truck idle on the wrong side of it. He punched buttons, cursed, then finally called Emily to come open it. He glared at me through the glass when he came inside. "You changed the gate code?" "Yep. You can't just lock us out of the property." "I can," I said. And I did. "It's called boundaries." His voice rose. "You're being unreasonable." "Unreasonable." I stepped closer. "You tried to erase me from my own house with fake reports, forged whispers, and now you're mad about a gate? Count yourself lucky I still let you through the front door." He laughed, sharp and mean. "You're losing it, old man." I smiled. "Funny. That's not what the psychologist said." He went silent, then walked out, muttering something about lawyers. 2 days later, the county social worker knocked on my door. A woman in her 40s, clipboard, polite smile. "Mr. Pierce? We received a welfare concern filed anonymously. Mind if I come in?" I almost laughed. "Anonymous, huh? Sure. Come in. Let's make his morning miserable." She looked around, inspected the kitchen, checked the medicine cabinet. "Everything seems fine. You live here alone?" "Unfortunately, no. My daughter and her husband live in the other wing." "You'll find the source of your concern right there." Her brows arched. "You believe they filed a report?" "I don't believe." "I know." I handed her a folder, photocopies of every false claim, every tax notice, every note I'd logged since the circus began. "Read that. Then tell me who looks like the one needing supervision." She leafed through the pages, her face tightening. "Mr. Pierce, this is harassment." "That's a kind word for it." She nodded. "Would you like to file a formal complaint?" "Yes," I said. "And I want a record showing this visit found no issues, mental, physical, or otherwise." "Of course." When she left, Todd was standing by the hallway pretending he hadn't been listening. I walked past him. "Next time you send someone to inspect me, make sure they bring lunch." It's a long walk back to the office with their tail between their legs. That evening, Emily came into the living room, eyes red. "Dad, please stop this war. He says you're humiliating him." "Good. Maybe he'll learn something." She sat down. "He's scared you'll throw us out." I turned off the TV. He's right. Her mouth fell open. You wouldn't. Emily, I said softly. I gave you both a home. You gave me disrespect, forged reports, and sleepless nights. You tell me why I shouldn't. She was quiet for a long time. Then, barely above a whisper, he said he only wanted to protect our future. Your future isn't built by stealing someone else's past. Tears filled her eyes, and for the first time in months, I saw the girl who used to run barefoot through this yard. I didn't know what he was doing, she said. Not all of it. Maybe not, I answered. But now you do, and knowing makes you responsible. The next morning, I drove back to Sam's office. He was expecting me. Ready to end it? He asked. More than ready. We filed an official notice of revocation, termination of their right to reside on the property. 30 days notice, legally binding. Copy sent by certified mail. By evening, Todd had the papers in his hands. I watched him read them from the porch. His face turned the color of old bricks. You can't evict us, he shouted. I can, I said, and I did. 30 days. Use them wisely. Emily came running out, pleading. Dad, please. Where will we go? You should have thought of that before you tried to bury me alive in my own home. Todd threw the envelope at my feet. You'll regret this. I bent, picked it up, and smiled. I've regretted worse things, like trusting you. He turned, stormed down the driveway, kicking gravel. Emily stood there a moment longer, tears streaking her face. Dad, she whispered, I don't know what to do. I looked at her steadily. Do what you should have done months ago. Choose who you are. Then I closed the door. That night, for the first time in a long while, the house was quiet again. The wind brushed against the windows like an old friend. I sat by the fireplace, the eviction notice copy stacked beside me, and felt something close to peace. But I knew Todd wasn't done. Men like him never leave quietly. And when he tried one last time, I'd be waiting with the final piece of the plan that would end this war for good. He didn't take 30 days. Todd made his move on day 12. I came back from the hardware store that morning with a can of oil, some nails, and fresh hinges for the shed door. Just small things to keep my hands busy. The kind of work that clears the mind. But as I pulled into the driveway, I saw a car that didn't belong. Sleek, black, with a vanity plate that read, One Lawyer, like it was supposed to impress me. Todd was sitting on the porch, arms crossed, chin up like he was about to fire a cannon. Next to him, a man in a suit stood flipping through a leather folder. Expensive haircut. Cheap eyes. Emily wasn't there. Harold Pierce, the man asked, stepping forward. That's me. He handed me an envelope. You are being served. My client, Mr. Todd Garvin, is filing for tenancy protection under familial residency status. He claims unlawful eviction and seeks full property access until further legal review. I stared at the man for a full 5 seconds before I spoke. You done talking? Excuse me. Good. My turn. I walked back to the truck, reached into the glove compartment, and pulled out my own envelope, prepared weeks ago with Sam, just in case. I slapped it into his palm. That's a counterclaim, with supporting documents. You'll find the deed in my name, dated 1983, a notarized living trust that names me as sole property holder, bank statements confirming I've paid every tax, every bill, every nail and brick on this house, and blueprints signed by the original architect with my initials on every page. Todd lives here at my discretion. That discretion is revoked. Todd stood up, red-faced. This is harassment. I turned to him. No, Todd, this is reality. You thought wearing a tie made you dangerous? I've buried men like you in paperwork. You brought a lawyer to a house I built with my bare hands. And you forgot one thing. I pointed at the front steps. See those bricks? I laid them, one by one. I still have the receipts from when I bought them at Thompson's Lumber in '83. You think I don't remember the cost? 3 cents a brick. You think I'm going to hand over my life to a man who never lifted a finger? The lawyer opened the envelope. Read the first 2 pages. Closed it. We'll be in touch. No, I said. You won't. This is your one touch. Todd slammed the door behind them when they left, shouting something about the courts, about the law being on his side. I didn't bother answering. I just sat on the porch and waited. Emily came home that evening. Her face looked tired, older than it should have at 35. She didn't even ask what happened. She sat beside me in silence. After a long while, she said, "He said you embarrassed him in front of his lawyer." "Good." "He also said he's not giving up." I turned to her. "And what do you say, Emily?" Her eyes watered. "I say, I wish I had stopped him when it was still easy." I didn't say anything, because there was nothing to say. She reached in her bag and pulled out a small photo, faded, crinkled on the edges. It was a picture of her, age 9, sitting on the roof of the porch, hammer in hand, pretending to help me build. She placed it on my knee. "You think you did it all alone, but I was there too. I was proud of you back then. You still can be." She nodded, but she didn't say she would. And that silence cut deeper than any insult Todd ever threw my way. The next day, I went to see Sam again. He greeted me with his usual smirk. Let me guess. He lawyered up like a boy dressing in his father's suit. We filed a formal injunction. If Todd pushed forward with any legal challenge, he'd have to do it while explaining why he forged a tax complaint, weaponized social services, and violated the verbal agreement of non-ownership under my trust. Sam lipped. "You sure you weren't a litigator in another life?" "No, just a builder." "Same thing," he said, "only better." That weekend, something strange happened. Emily came to me quietly, told me she'd started looking at apartments, said she needed space, from me, but more so from him. I asked, "Are you leaving together or alone?" She hesitated. "I don't know yet." And for the first time, I realized maybe the war wasn't just between me and Todd. Maybe there was a part of Emily still trying to claw her way back to who she used to be. Maybe it wasn't too late. But for Todd, his time was ticking. He finally did it. Todd went to the press. Not a real newspaper, of course. Just some greasy little blogger from the county website who'll publish anything if you buy him a sandwich and call him sir. I got a call from Martha Wilson before breakfast. "Harold, have you seen this?" she asked, barely keeping the anger out of her voice. "Seen what?" "They've got your name all over the article. Says you're abusive, unstable, kicked your daughter into the street, that you're losing your mind." I took a deep breath and opened the link she sent. The headline read, "Elderly father evicts daughter, grandkids amid cognitive decline." Beneath it, a photo of Todd, arms around Emily, both frowning like two porcelain angels. I nearly choked on my coffee. 2 hours later, the town had seen it. The bakery owner gave me a look when I walked in. The bank teller paused before greeting me. Even Joe, the guy I've fished with since '79, asked if I was doing okay. Todd had planned this perfectly. He'd turned the story into something small towns love, a scandal with a villain they think they already know. And who better to paint as the bitter old man than me? But Todd forgot one thing. This town didn't build him. It built me. I waited 2 days. Just enough time for the whispers to settle in. Then I made my move. First, I went to Claire, who runs the local library and community Facebook page. "I need a favor," I said, handing her a sealed manila envelope. She looked at it, confused. "What's this?" "The truth." Then I drove to the Veterans Hall and posted a flyer. Same at the feed store, the church bulletin board, and even on the high school's alumni board. Saturday, 2 p.m., Pierce family property. One story you haven't heard yet. No details. No drama. Just a promise. By noon that day, the driveway was full. Folks brought folding chairs, sunglasses, and thermoses like they were coming for a sermon. Emily stood off to the side, arms crossed. Todd wasn't with her. I stepped up onto the porch with a microphone I hadn't used since the last town fundraiser. I cleared my throat. "You all read the article." "I know. I've read it too. And I know what it made me look like. But this house," I said, gesturing behind me, "wasn't bought with money. It was built with time, with sweat, with pain, brick by brick, board by board." I pulled a box from beside me. Inside were old photos, receipts, letters from City Hall dated back to the '80s. I held up one. "This is a letter from the county inspector in 1986, congratulating me on completing this home single-handedly after my wife passed. Some of you remember it. Some of you were there." People nodded. Then I pulled out something else. A taped interview. From 1994. Local news. I was named Veteran Small Builder of the Year. It showed me and a 9-year-old Emily hammering nails into the deck. I'd forgotten the footage even existed, but Claire dug it out from the local archive. I pressed play. There we were. Me, younger. Her, bright-eyed. "I'm gonna live here forever," little Emily said on camera. "My daddy built this house stronger than anything." Silence fell over the crowd. I turned off the tape. I didn't change. I didn't lose my mind. What changed was who they became when they thought I had no fight left in me. Then I stepped aside. I've said my piece. Now you decide what story you believe. People stayed after. Some hugged me. Some just nodded with wet eyes. But the tone had shifted. Todd's article didn't age well in the face of living memory. Because this wasn't just my house. It was part of the town's story. That night, Todd came home, slamming doors again. "You think this is over?" he barked. "You think some backyard speech erases what you did?" I stood up. "No, does. But it reminds people of what I did before you ever existed here." He laughed bitterly. "You're a manipulator." "I'm a builder," I said. "But I've learned how to demolish, too." His face went red. "We're going to court. And when we do, that crowd won't matter." I walked over to the drawer and placed the final paper on the table. A document Emily had signed as a teenager. A notarized witness statement verifying I paid for the land and the home myself. Without help, without co-ownership, and with full intention to pass it through trust, not inheritance. It was legally binding, and Emily remembered signing it. "Bring your court," I said, "but be ready to watch it burn around you." He left the kitchen shaking. And for the first time, I knew the fire had finally reached him. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not physically, no. Just the kind of cold that seeps into your gut when family tries to bury you in front of strangers. Todd was dressed in a three-piece suit, slicked back hair, too much cologne. He walked in like a man who had already won, like the room was just a formality. He nodded at Emily like she was an assistant, not his wife. Me? I wore what I always wore to serious work, my old boots, pressed shirt, and the same belt I'd worn since '85. Because this wasn't a trial. This was a construction site, and it was time to tear something down. Judge Harrelson was firm, older than me, and knew how to read between words. He asked Todd's lawyer to present first, and boy, did they present. "We're here to request emergency injunction against unlawful eviction," the lawyer began, and to question the cognitive clarity of Mr. Harold Pierce, who has shown signs of memory decline and irrational behavior. "We also allege emotional abuse toward his daughter and grandchildren." I raised one eyebrow, not a flicker of doubt in me. Let him dig. He brought out screenshots of texts Todd had faked, claimed I was losing it, that I forgot names, dates, numbers. He played a voicemail where I'd paused for a few seconds before speaking. "As you can see," the lawyer said dramatically, "Mr. Pierce exhibits gaps in processing." The judge didn't look impressed. Then Todd stood. He gave the performance of his life. Hands clasped, voice soft, face of a concerned family man. "I love this man, Your Honor. But he's not who he used to be. He's paranoid, violent. My children are afraid to be around him. I've only ever wanted peace." He even faked a tear. I didn't say a word, because I knew what came next. Judge Harrelson turned to me. "Mr. Pierce, you have the floor." I stood slowly, walked up to the table, opened my box of documents. "With all due respect, Your Honor, I didn't come here to argue. I came here to remind." I laid out the first file. Date, dated 1983. My name, my funds. Next, video interview from the news segment, already authenticated by local media. Then a letter from Thompson's Lumber, signed by the original owner, verifying materials purchased under my name. I continued, calm, precise, methodical, like I was rebuilding a wall the storm had knocked down. Then I dropped the final piece, a notarized statement, signed by Emily at 17, acknowledging full ownership rights belonged to me, and confirming that any future residents would be, with permission and under no claim to the property. Todd flinched, but I wasn't done. "Your Honor," I said, "I would also like to submit a cognitive assessment from 2 licensed professionals, both confirming my mental clarity is above average for my age. I had those tests done 2 weeks ago, quietly, because I knew this was coming." Judge Harrelson flipped through the pages. His expression changed. Then I pulled out a USB stick. Claire had helped me transfer old home footage to digital. "Finally," I said, "a short video from 1990. Emily and I building the porch. Todd is nowhere in sight because he hadn't earned a brick of this house. Not then, not now. The courtroom watched. Not a soul moved. Young Emily, laughing. Me lifting beams. The house, unfinished but alive. No lies in those images. No court tricks. Just truth. Tangible. Undeniable. After it ended, Judge Harrelson looked up. "Mr. Garvin," he said, voice cool, "do you have any documentation showing ownership, payments, contracts, or contribution to the property in question?" Todd swallowed hard. "Well, no, but I've lived there. That should." "Occupancy does not equal ownership," the judge snapped. "And false claims of cognitive decline, that's perjury adjacent." The lawyer tried to interject. Harrelson waved him off. "This court recognizes Mr. Harold Pierce as sole legal owner of the property. There is no standing for emergency injunction. Case dismissed." Bang of the gavel. Todd's mouth hung open. I walked out with my head high. Emily stayed seated for a moment. When she finally stepped outside, I turned to her. "You knew the truth," I said quietly. "I did," she whispered. "But I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of picking a side. Of what it would mean for the kids." "For me." I nodded. "You still have time to choose," I said. "But just know, this house doesn't have room for people who try to erase the ones who built it." She looked down, then walked away. That night, Todd packed bags. Emily helped him. No shouting, no drama, just the slow, silent death of a lie. And I made coffee, sat on the porch, watched the sun come up over the house I built, brick by damn brick. You ever notice how evil doesn't know when it quit? I thought I'd buried Todd's last trick in that courtroom. Gavel down, truth revealed, and the snake finally slithering off the porch he never earned. But men like him, they don't lose. They just pause long enough to reload. It was 2 weeks of silence. Emily took the kids and went to her sister's. Todd disappeared, or so I thought. Then came the letter from the county assessor's office. Stamped. Official. Cold as ice. It claimed a boundary dispute had been filed regarding my property lines. Apparently, Todd had submitted historical records that called into question whether the land behind my house, the backyard, the garden, the workshop, technically belonged to me at all. He wasn't after the house anymore. No, he was after the ground beneath it. I drove straight to the courthouse. Didn't wait for Sam. Didn't need to. Marjorie at the land records desk has known me since 1979. She took one look at the file, and her eyebrows shot up. "Harold, someone's trying to play chess with a man who poured the damn board himself." I chuckled, but inside I was burning. Todd had submitted a 1947 map, a hand-drawn survey, that claimed a portion of my yard extended into what had once been a disputed county parcel. It was never fully recorded in the new grid after the highway was built in '61. On paper, he had just enough ambiguity to request a hold on my title. A hold on my land. This wasn't about winning. This was a message. I'm still here. I went home, locked the gate behind me, walked into the shed, and opened the old steel cabinet that hadn't been touched in decades. Inside was a canvas roll, brown with age, tied in twine. I laid it flat on the workbench, unrolled it slow, and there it was, my grandfather's original land map. He'd sketched it himself in 1949. He was a railroad man, but detail was in his blood. His map was cleaner, tighter, and signed by the district engineer. Not just a drawing. It was recorded and filed at the now-defunct railway office in Millersburg. The kicker? It showed the true corner stakes, based on the old iron fence markers. And those markers? They were still in the ground, buried under grass and moss, rusted but intact. I grabbed my shovel. That evening I dug. Found the first marker 6 inches deeper than I remembered. Then the second, near the tree stump I refused to cut. By midnight, I had all 4 exposed. Next morning, I called Sam, told him what I had. He laughed so loud I thought he'd drop the phone. "Harold, this isn't just defense. This is scorched earth counterattack." Good. I want it scorched. We filed an immediate counterclaim. Included grandfather's original map, with photographic evidence of all 4 markers. Sam even had a drone guy fly over to get an aerial view, comparing Todd's map to ours. Todd's was a fake. Sloppy. Likely pulled from some archived farm record 3 counties over and adjusted. We had dates, names, signatures, coordinates. He had crayon fiction. Still, the county called a hearing. And you can guess who showed up. Todd, in yet another new suit. This time, with a real estate attorney. He argued that, regardless of authenticity, Mr. Pierce has not proven continuous possession of the disputed land for the required time under the doctrine of adverse possession. I almost laughed in his face. Instead, I stood, pulled out an envelope. Inside, a stack of dated photographs. Every 5 years, from 1985 to last spring. Me, the yard, the markers, the shed, the peach tree, the garden beds. That's my granddaughter in 1997, I said, showing the panel. She buried a time capsule next to that old stone. We still have it. Inside's a toy frog and a note that says, "For Grandpa, 2020. We opened it together 2 years ago." One of the assessors smiled. The judge leaned back and nodded. And I knew. I had him. Decision came 3 days later. Full land rights reinstated. False claim flagged. And a quiet note from the county. Todd had been reported for suspected document manipulation. I didn't celebrate. Just poured coffee, sat on the edge of the yard, and looked at those iron markers in the ground. Rusty, bent, but still there, like me. That night, Emily called. First time in weeks. He's staying at a hotel. He says you're ruining his life. Tell him I didn't ruin it. I just stopped letting him lie inside mine. He won't let it go. Then let him try. I've still got the original blueprints. And a full tank of gas. She paused, then said something she hadn't said since she was 12. I'm proud of you, Dad. And for the first time in months, I finally slept easy. They say the most dangerous man is the one who has nothing left to protect. That's not true. The most dangerous man is the one who's already protected what matters and realizes he's free to let go. After the hearing, Todd vanished from the property line and from my life. No more letters. No more lawsuits. No more grandstanding on my porch like he was the sheriff and I was just a squatter in his dream. Emily stayed gone, too. She'd call sometimes. Brief. Stiff. Like she wanted to say more, but couldn't get the words past years of silence that had built between us. I didn't blame her, but I didn't wait for her, either. Because one morning, just before the frost hit, I got a knock on the back door. It wasn't Todd. It wasn't Emily. It was her. Hair in a wild braid. Eyes like her mother's when she used to build forts out of moving boxes. And that quiet little grin that said she didn't quite know what to say, but showed up anyway. Grandpa, she said, can I stay here for a while? She was 16, just old enough to know when the walls of home aren't walls, they're cages. I looked past her at the beat-up backpack, the duct-taped Converse, and the bruised silence in her shoulders. I opened the door wide. You hungry? She nodded. I didn't ask what Todd had done. Didn't ask why Emily hadn't come looking. Some truths come out better through pancakes than pressure. Over breakfast, she stared at the photos on the wall. The old ones. The house when it was just 2 rooms and a roof. Me in overalls, younger, leaner, stubborn as ever. You build all this? She asked. Brick by brick. Can we build something too? That stopped me cold. Like what? She shrugged. I don't know. Something new. Somewhere else. Somewhere that doesn't come with ghosts. That night, I walked through the house. Touched every door frame. Ran my hand along the grain of the kitchen table. Looked at the light fixtures I'd installed in '89 when Emily said she wanted something brighter. Then I sat on the porch. And I did what I never thought I would. I let go. This place didn't need protecting anymore. The fight was over. The land was mine. But so was freedom. We packed in silence. Didn't take much. Just clothes, photos, tools, and one old box of blueprints. I didn't sell the house. I donated it to a local veterans group looking for transitional housing. Let the place that once saved me save someone else now. Todd never showed up to stop it. I heard from a friend he'd taken a job 2 states over. Said something about starting fresh. Good. Let him try building something from scratch for once. We found a little plot on the edge of Ash Hollow. Nothing fancy. Just hills, trees, and possibility. Together, my granddaughter and I started over. She helped me lay the first boards. Learn how to hold a level, mix cement, and curse properly when you drop a hammer on your foot. She laughed for the first time in months. I did too. No more family drama. No courts. No noise. just the sound of building again. One evening, while we sat on overturned paint buckets watching the sun dip low, she asked me, "Do you miss it? The old house?" "Sometimes." "Do you regret letting it go?" I shook my head. I protected it when it mattered. But some things you keep safe by holding on, others by knowing when to let go. She nodded slowly. "So what are we building here?" I looked at the beams, the gravel, the wide open air. Not just a house. A future that doesn't come with chains. A week later, Emily showed up. She stood at the edge of the frame, uncertain. Her daughter ran into her arms. They didn't say much. They didn't need to. Emily walked over to me. "I heard what you did. With the house. The land." I waited. She looked at the half-built structure, the blueprints spread on the truck bed, the fresh foundation. "Do you think there's space here for me too?" I didn't say yes. Didn't say no. Just handed her a hammer. And she took it. That's the thing about legacy. It's not the land. It's not the walls. It's not the title in your name. It's what you build when the dust settles. And who shows up to build it with you.